You may recall from our previous visit that there was an umbrella standing. There's an umbrella hanging from this rail. And I mentioned that we should take note because it might figure prominently in our future discussions and decisions and such forth. I'm afraid I'll have to get back that to you later. It turned out to be quite an interesting situation, but I've got something else I'd like to consider tonight. And that is that it is Trudeau. It's a Trudeau Christmas. I can tell you, I did not expect I would be enjoying a Trudeau Christmas. In case you don't know what a Trudeau Christmas is, a Trudeau is Justin Trudeau is Trudeau. I think that's an appropriate name. And it's Trudeau Christmas because it's close to Christmas. And it's a very festive Christmas because we have got him so badly by the balls on this Emergencies Act thing that it's not even funny. And so because I have memory lapses and dyslexia and as this Indian guy on the train yesterday, he was confused by the same messages that I was, right? But he's definitely the kind of guy that like everybody fucking avoided, right? Quite a fit, pretty smart, but you know, obviously wild Aboriginal guy, about 45 years old. And he gets on, he doesn't understand the message on the announcement. So it's like totally appropriate that he would ask what it meant, right? What did they say? Nobody knew. And so I just piped up and I said, there will be no stopping at the next break. That's what they said. I told them there's be no stopping at the next break. And then I said, but what the fuck does that mean? That's just how I talked to him. What the fuck does that mean? What's a break? And he looked at me and he said, well, I'll tell you, partner. I'm half dumb and no, I'm half dumb and no, half deaf and totally dumb. I'm half deaf and totally dumb. So it turned out it was there was no stopping at Braid Station because of a police incident. A lot of police incidents in this neck of the country. Anyway, so to get back to the Trudeau thing, yeah, it couldn't be any better because, so I've written it down because I'm too dumb to, you know, tell stories and point the camera and all that. So I've written down a bunch of stuff, and okay, so all I have to do is just get a kick on it, and I'll get it. Okay, so I'm going to put it as a series of whys. Okay, why was it that you chose to invoke the act after several high-level security experts told you that invoking the act could provoke the sort of situation you don't want, which is what you think was going to happen, you warned was going to happen with the violence? Well, you provoked it by invoking the Emergencies Act. Of course. What did you think? Those people are just going to be scared of you? And then they scared of you and they would never be resentful later or anything? Of course you inspired hatred against you and what you represent. What you represent is a lot of Canadians. We've got a real problem here. Anybody that's still on his side now is out to lunch. Absolutely out to lunch. So, okay, that's question number one. Why did you invoke it after you received that bit of insight from security officials? Okay, that's one question. The next question is, what reference manual, you know, on protest management or crowd control did you consult when you decided it would be a great idea to ignore and insult the protesters? Can you point us to the passage in the relevant literature, because we can't find it? Absolutely just dog basic stuff. If you've got a motivated protest that feels righteous in its cause, you don't ignore and insult it. You don't ignore and insult it. That provoked violence. If the protesters had been as violently inclined as you seem to suggest that they were, and that half of the country thinks that they were, why weren't they aroused to violence after that? The area around Parliament Hill saw no serious violence. No serious violence. Not according to what's laid out in the CSIS Act. Okay, so here's another one. Why did you invoke the act after CSIS said that you hadn't met the threshold? It's up to them. They're the security officials. They said you didn't meet the threshold for invoking the act, but you did it anyway. So why did you do that? Why did you do that? I've got another one here. I had it lined up when I started talking. I had another why. Yeah, why did you do that? Oh yeah, I know that's the natural one. This is my greatest video. This is my greatest video right here. That's how I feel. I just feel like my thoughts are so together. Why didn't you tell everybody that you had a meeting with David Vigneault in which he advised you to invoke the Emergencies Act? Why didn't you tell the world that he told you that? Because it would have made everything so much simpler from the beginning, wouldn't it? Everyone would have been on your side. There would have been no downside for you to just say that right up front. Just to say, yeah, you know, actually, it's true, David Vigneault, the CSIS director, did tell that to the cabinet, made a point of telling cabinet that they hadn't met the threshold. The truckers hadn't met the threshold. It would be up to the truckers to meet the threshold. They didn't meet it, right? So you did it anyway. But then David Vigneault says, okay, even though you didn't meet the criteria, you should do it anyway. David Vigneault says that, and we only find out about it like 2 days later. We haven't just got them, you know, by the balls. We've got them by the short hairs on their balls. It couldn't be clearer. Absolutely couldn't be clearer. No security agency asked for it. And then there's, you know, the various absurdities that came along. Like, they actually froze the bank accounts of people that were just protesting in front of Parliament Hill. And because they froze their bank accounts, those kids quite often couldn't get home because they didn't have any money. So what they did is they locked them downtown. By arresting them and freezing their bank accounts, they prevented them from leaving. Just like they prevented the trucks from leaving. I think it had been like 2 days prior to the invocation. A deal had been reached between the city of Ottawa and the truckers to begin leaving, and they had begun leaving. They had begun leaving already. So is that a great time? Like, in terms of like not enraging this violent, you know, bunch of, what do you call them? What do you guys call them? Deplorables? I think in Canada, what do you call them in Canada? Rednecks. I think that's pretty much what you call them. They're rednecks. But what's going to happen if it turns out that the rednecks were absolutely right? You want to call the rednecks, you want to call the protesters rednecks? Okay, well then the rednecks were right. This whole thing stunk from the beginning. There was a lot of letters from serious people in the United States who wrote Justin Trudeau serious letters. I mean, seriously high-level stuff, asking him to remove the mandate because we were already 2 years into the pandemic. The virus was less virulent at that time. It's Omicron, there's a little wave or something like that. That's what Chrystia Freeland said. Chrystia Freeland couldn't answer a question if it was served on a platter. Anyway, what was I talking about? I get into this problem. If I go on a tangent, then I forget what it was that I was talking about before. And in fact, I can't remember what it was I was talking about before. Why didn't he meet with the protesters? Okay, that's a funny one, because a lot of people have said, well, if he just met with the protesters, then everything would have been all right. But according to Brian Wilson, they had no interest in talking to Trudeau. They wanted to talk to someone they could respect. And it wasn't him. I think that they would have gone for just about anybody. And in fact, what happened is that the first time that our government representative came and officially talked to them, to Tamara Lidge, the truckers began to move out. So, like, think of it. The idea was that if he had just met with them, they would have left. And that was what people said for a long time, right? A long time was wasted there. Those dangerous people were kept on the streets of Ottawa honking horns and doing all the damage that you said they did. Like propping up a lot of small businesses because those truckers came to town hungry and thirsty and needing a place to stay. Probably needed themselves a big crapper. Probably needed a big crapper. So that's a lot of business. You can't have that many people flood into a city without it being good for some businesses. And some guys said it was kind of a lifeline after COVID. Oh yeah, so officials in Washington said like don't do this with the mandate because the people that you're opposing are a stubborn bunch, and you haven't had a serious problem till now. Why would you, towards the end of the crisis, impose an extra restriction on these guys? They're sitting in their cab all the time. They test frequently, and about 85% of them were 80%. This is interesting. 80% of them were vaccinated, which meant 20,000 of them, 20% weren't. The thing is that 20% is of like 150,000 people. So the number of trucks he took off the road by doing that was about 30,000. 30,000 trucks came off the line because of that restriction. 30,000 trucks. It's true, most of them were vaccinated, but a small percentage of a big number is still a big number. There can be a big number, and 30,000 trucks coming off the road is a big number. So it's like Chrystia Freeland says, oh, we're worried about the hit to our reputation and all that. You should see the committee hearings with, I think it's Green, the guy's name is Green, and Chrystia Freeland. It's honestly just almost difficult to believe how absolutely indolent she can be. Like you need to see that. She's a disgrace. So what were we talking about? Before, I went off on another tangent. Yeah. So that hurt the economy of Canada by taking all those trucks off the road. And then they're saying the Ambassador Bridge. They keep talking about the Ambassador Bridge and all that, right? How much it affected trade and everything. I remember seeing numbers like 400 million a day and stuff like that. That was in the paper. And in reality, trade between that border increased like 16% over the previous year. It might have went up further, you know. It might have been better. It had to cost a lot of money. I'm not saying that. The border closures were absolutely stupid. Absolutely 100% stupid. And so was the car honking. That's the biggest mistake. And really from that, the message to take is if you're going to protest, do it peacefully. Because as soon as you don't, you lose your right to protest. Not as soon as, but pretty quick. You can't have violent protesters around. But the thing is these guys weren't violent. There was no violence. There was just no violence. Nobody's arrested. Like it was, well, for a lot of people, it was, really just an extravagant, ecstatic party because they finally got together with other Canadians who'd been feeling locked down and everything for a year and a half and oppressed by this government, had come out and achieved this. So they were just ecstatic. It was a beautiful, beautiful party. A real, I'm home and I'm with people who make sense and we're doing something important. A lot of people go their whole lives without experiencing anything like that. I experienced a little bit, and it was like that. But it wouldn't have been like it was in Ottawa. It was like a toned down, way, 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 way toned down. But the one that I went to was good too because it was in front of the CBC. So that was a nice place. And yeah, people were just, really, it was a big love-in. I don't mean that in a sexual way at all. It was just a big love-in. It really was. I got in a fight with them because I refused to take off my mask. It wasn't a big fight. They said, take off your mask, and I said, no. The idea here is freedom. I'll wear it if I want to. Don't tell me to do anything. Don't tell me to do one thing or the other with my mask. Don't tell me to put it on. Don't tell me to take it off, and we'll get along. And I hassled that out with a few people, too. I like starting fights like that. But because they were with reasonable people, I wasn't really going to get in trouble. I just told you they were really, really nice. But, so there was a kind of a tacky kind of thing where told me to put it on. Okay, I gotta stop.